Hello, everybody, and welcome to TVE versus Marvel and DC, Episode 8. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're going to be talking about all of Jessica Jones, and we are also going to be talking about the Flash Arrow season 2 for Flash crossover. The big Legends of Tomorrow setup thing. So we'll talk about that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Uh, let's get started. So I am Tyson. I'm your host. Joining me today are Kat
Hi.
and Will.
Hello.
So let's kick things off with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So what a good way to start an episode.
Yeah,
Poor
I did
Rosalind.
not
Yeah.
see that coming, to be honest. I was like, whoa.
Well, my thing was they showed Coulson in the preview, like so angry about something, and they were being so coy about what he was being angry about. And so as soon as I saw the two of them in that opening happy together, I was like, oh, she's gonna die before this scene ends. And
Yeah.
sure enough.
See, this is why I'm glad I watched on.
So she was a great character, but I understand why they killed her.
This is
Well, she didn't
why.
have too terribly much use anymore as a character. I mean. But yeah, I loved the pullback where it pulled back and you got to see that it was Ward that shot her, and then his little discussion with Coulson, and then how that like immediately went into like Coulson being attacked and him just going into like badass mode.
We don't get to see Clark Gregg do that a lot. It's usually like May and Blobby who do that kind of thing. So that was fun to see.
Yeah,
He's enjoying his robot hand quite a bit now.
yeah,
He is.
yeah. Seeing Coulson in rage mode was like the best thing about this episode.
Also seeing Coulson dive bomb from an airplane through a portal that took him to another planet. That was like just one of the most gloriously
Yeah, that was
the elements of the episode. It was wonderful.
glorious.
It reminded me of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, when he dived into the water without a parachute.
See, that last scene there is why Rage Mode Coulson is best Coulson.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a great episode. Let's talk about some of the minutia going on here. So, Fitzsimmons got captured, both of them. Of course, you know, it's going to be Fitz that breaks in that situation under concern for Simmons. I like that Simmons like had the strength to realize that even though she wants to get, you know, the guy back from the planet really badly, that like it's just not like she had reservations even before they were captured about Hydra's intentions and what else would lie beyond and the possibility of it getting back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
My one concern about the episode was Simmons, and I feel like, you know, this show I think in general has done really great female characters. I love May and I love Bobby, and they've done great with like Daisy and Rosalind and stuff. I feel like Simmons is starting to lose agency. I feel like everyone is acting on her behalf, and she's not really getting to act for herself, and she's barely gotten to it all this season. So I am really concerned about the future of Simmons' character because I think the writers are kind of losing track of her.
Well, she lost agency in Fitz's choice, but she was also challenged and didn't break, you know, which is something I liked about.
She was, but like we haven't really gotten to see her act in any significant way this season. Like people act on her behalf, and it's more of classic damsel in distress. It's even classic, like traditionally how female characters were treated up until about 5 years ago in comic book stuff, like in film and television. So
I still think she's gonna get her big moment this season. I don't think they're gonna completely, you know, let her, you know, let that stay that way. I think
Hmm.
I think it's going to come where she is going to act and she's going to do something major and have her moment.
I hope so. I want to be really optimistic about Simmons, but I was really optimistic when she got sucked into the portal because it was like, especially of the original main six characters, she has been the most underserved, especially in the first two seasons. And I was like, she's finally going to get her own great storyline. And then it kind of got hijacked by she went to another planet and fell in love with a guy to throw a wrench in a relationship with Fitz. And so it didn't really do much
Right.
for her character. It only
Mhm.
did something for her dynamic with Fitz. So I still feel like the character has been underserved by this plot line, and so I'm still concerned by the fact that she hasn't really gotten to act for herself in any major way. I mean, Will, I feel like, is at least as much responsible for her even getting off the planet at all. So anyway, I'd like they if they had left her on the planet by herself, she could have gotten, she would have had total agency. It could have
Yeah.
been her entirely her own plot line,
This Will character.
and it would have been acting entirely on her own. So I still feel like I get why they're doing well. I get what purpose it's serving. I still feel like the character is being underserved.
See, the reason I think that she's going to have her moment is because now the tables are kind of turned because Fitz is on the other side and not Simmons. And I think,
Uh
depending on
huh.
what goes down there, I think it's going to come down to Simmons having to save everybody and prevent this creature from crossing over. I think that's where the
That would be
story's
a
headed.
great use of her character. That would be a great use of her character. I'm remembering one moment from her that I absolutely loved last season was during the whole New Shield takeover, and there's this moment where Bobby comes in and is trying to put Simmons into something, and Simmons knows that Bobby is shady and totally plays her. I don't know if you remember the scene I'm talking about, and I'm not doing a very good job of describing it, but it was a legitimate scene of Simmons being savvy. So I hope you're right. I'd love to see that kind of Simmons in dealing with Hydra. I think it'd be a great use of her character.
Definitely.
Mhm.
And I do
At,
remember
at
that scene.
least at least it's better than prejudiced Simmons from last season. So I'm happy that we're past that part at least. So yeah. Any other thoughts on the episode?
I like Mac as director. I'm guessing is going to be staying in this uh, and is for the rest of the season, and I think it's a great use of his character.
I think so too. Um,
Mhm.
other than that, not too much else, is there? It's I guess the scene where Coulson like freaking grabbed oh, what's his name? Not, not Bobby, obviously.
Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter. He grabbed Hunter by the throat and like basically, this is all your fault if you had it missed. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. It's a side effect of Coulson Rage mode.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah, I
right?
thought that was a bit of an overreaction to blame it on Hunter, but
Yeah,
But
it's a
I
little
love
bit.
Coulson. I love Hunter. I thought Coulson was unfairly blaming it on Hunter.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I thought that was harsh.
He
And
just
it
had
was
so
like,
much anger he needed to vent it out, and he ended up venting it out on Hunter. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
but I love Hunter's response to it all. That he wasn't like it didn't create like a disposition between them. That he understood, and that he was like, yeah, I take my responsibility for my part in that. Let's move on and fucking kill him.
And we got to see Ward's brother this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I half expected him to secretly turn out to be evil too, so I was kind of surprised he wasn't.
Right, right. It's like anybody like even remotely related to Ward is evil now.
Can you trust them? I mean, Ward's a psychopath, and his other brother last season didn't come across as great.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, and we've only heard pretty bad things about his parents.
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, it's a family of like just horrible people. It's like, and Daisy saying like she could relate to Ward on some level, or Ward could relate to her. Um, that was really really introspective there of her character.
It was an interesting way to show the change of Ward's relationship with everybody by having Coulson question them
Right.
and showing kind of
Yeah.
like yeah, it was something that kind of it's happened before and they've kind of pointed to it before, but they really got into it this time and really showed like where they had like connections to him and where those broke down and where it was hard for the characters. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, that
So,
was fun to see. Nice callbacks to first season.
Definitely, and especially with Daisy in that case, with talking about like she didn't kind of understand him until she realized he was just psychotic.
yeah.
I just hope they don't try to redeem Ward. I want Ward to stay evil. He's more fun evil. Don't try to redeem him.
I know.
Yeah.
He's fun evil. If I just want them to kill Ward so that he could die being evil fun Ward and not be like redeemed anti-hero Ward.
Yeah, I've seen that so many other times that it's like, okay.
Well, he was kind of doing that last season too. He was kind of that weird anti-hero role. So it'd be good enough for him not to go back to that.
Well,
His
was
last
a
season, he
weird
was still
wild
kind of
card last
helpful.
season.
Yeah, but he was still kind of
But-
helpful in some ways.
But he was clearly a psychopath at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's
He's trying to get in good back with Daisy. Yeah. One of the best moments.
you
of
saw how
last
kind of
season was-
delusional he was with that too.
Yeah. Well, and then when she shot him, I was really happy when she shot him because I didn't even hesitate. So
She finally understood him.
I'm kind of. I don't know what they're gonna do with the whole Inhuman. I'm sorry that every time, like ever since they've described him, I think of him as being the Inhuman equivalent of Apocalypse. And since he
Right.
doesn't have a name yet, I just want to call him Apocalypse.
call him
I
like
don't know what they're gonna do
Armageddon.
with the Inhuman equivalent.
Call him Armageddon
I remember when
or Apocalypse.
I remember when people were speculating that it was death on that planet, and then that'd tie it into Thanos and Infinity War somehow. And it's like
I just don't think they'd put that big of a thing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, I think it would be cool if they did. I just don't think they would.
yeah, I don't think they would either.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, at least I'm so excited because, like, I genuinely have no idea what's going to happen next. So I'm excited. Like, I think they set up the mid-season finale in really interesting ways.
yeah, I think they did. I'm really excited for this finale now, with Coulson and Fitz and on this alien planet now, with Ward leading a Hydra team. There's going to be a lot going down on this alien world now. And all the stuff they set up, it's going to be, this is going to be good.
Don't forget Powers Booth, I guess, doing a jig in the castle. So yeah. I think we're going to end up seeing Powers Booth's character probably get killed.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might not even show that side of the story next week at all. It might be entirely on the planet, because there's so many players there now.
Yeah,
They've actually already released promotional material that has shown that there will be stuff going on. So,
Okay.
And I would be disappointed because they've set up so many other plot threads outside of that I'd be really disappointed if they just followed Coulson, Fitz, and Ward for an episode. It's like, I want to see what's going on with everyone else, too.
Yeah, there's definitely there's so much going on. I was just thinking there was a possibility until you said they already put out promotional images, but there was a possibility they could do it because there were so many players on that planet now. That there's so many different things because like you have Coulson like kind of injured there, and he has to kind of get up and find his own way. Then you have Will, who's got to eventually kind of come into play into this, and then you have this evil force that is probably going to be identified or, at least seen in greater detail with a better understanding in this episode. Then you have the Hydra team, and then you have Fitz, who's probably going to have to break off from the Hydra team. So there's like so much going on with just that group there, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be much like last season. The mid-season finale was like this, like oh my god, like crazy moment, and then
Mhm.
it shifted. It's almost like Agents of Shield seasons are like 2 seasons per season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they kind of have like this arc that kind of takes this dramatic shift into a different arc.
Well,
That always happens with the mid-season. So.
remember before the season started, they teased Secret Warriors, and we still haven't seen that. But
Well, we saw a
Yeah.
little bit of it.
I think we saw the
I'm
beginning.
sure
of that.
we'll get that more in the back half of the season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they teased it this episode because they showed the 2 Inhumans that they have at Shield besides Daisy, of course, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Coulson brought them along, and so it's kind of like I think we're getting around to that now more, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's really cool. So let's move on from Agents of Shield, which we have some hopes for. Before we get into Jessica Jones, did both of you watch the Captain America Civil War trailer?
Yes.
Is that the one that ends where Falcon and Captain America are both fighting Iron Man at the same time?
Yes.
And
Oh no,
he's
it's not
like,
Falcon.
my
It's
friend, so
Oh,
is
it's
I.
Bucky.
it's Bucky and
Or
Captain
no,
America.
but I'm sorry, you're right. It's Bucky and Captain America says he's my friend, and Iron Man says so was I.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah. Then yeah, I did.
So I just wanted to talk about that. It's a movie, so it's a little bit outside of the wheelhouse, but it's also it's MCU.
But it's
So
MCU.
yeah.
I think it's fair game.
I think Will and I were talking about earlier, and we were saying that we really liked the trailer because the idea of kind of, to use Will's phrase, turning Tony Stark into a mustache-twirling villain for, Civil War just kind of seems ridiculous, and, it just wouldn't hold as much credibility, and it wouldn't make sense for them to resolve their ways and stuff. But by tying this kind of split to, like, Bucky and making it, like, Captain that's the one kind of doing the thing that's irrational to everybody else, He's the one that's kind of like protecting this terrorist type figure or whatever. Makes it more interesting and more personal.
Right, because to the world, Bucky is a terrorist now. He's a criminal. He did all these terrible things in Winter Soldier, and but he was under mind control from Hydra, and Captain America, he's realizing that he was being controlled, that he now is regaining his senses, getting his agency back. I think Captain America's position is he just wants to help him, but the world wants to arrest him, and Iron Man is, and Iron Man's part of that force that just wants to see him.
There was also the rumors before, a while ago, before the trailer came out, like, I don't know, like 6 months ago, I think, where they were talking about the sides that people were going to take, and everyone was kind of like weirded out by the fact that, Black Widow wasn't going to be on Cap's side, because that kind of didn't make sense.
Do we
Because if
know
you look
which
at the
side
relationship.
she's on?
She's supposed to be. I mean, even in the trailer, they kind of showed that they hinted that she was going to be on Iron Man's side. This was like a rumor, anyways. But
It's not
people were
rumor.
like,
It's not, the sides aren't rumor anymore because Marvel released official artwork that showed the different sides.
I do remember that.
but now it
Okay.
makes sense when it's all tied to Bucky, because remember in Winter Soldier, she had a pretty significant reaction to him. She has a scar from him. She was in a situation where he tried to kill her even before the present course of the movie. So she already has history with the Winter Soldier is this monster, which makes it make sense that she would be against Cap in this case. So yeah,
It'll be interesting to see because she was his closest ally in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that's why it didn't make sense to me at first when those sides were first kind of talked about, just because I was like, oh, why wouldn't she be on his side? That doesn't make sense. She'd totally be on his side after, if you look at Winter Soldier. But in this case, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense.
And it'll be interesting to see, just because I like the idea of there being conflict between the superheroes themselves, because no other superhero movies, at least that I'm aware of, have ever tackled this idea in any significant way. Usually it's superheroes versus villains, and that's great, but I think it's interesting to do it superheroes versus superheroes, especially since it seems to me that's not very uncommon in the comics, that the conflict comes between the main characters.
Yeah.
And there's no obvious side to root for. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think this is more interesting because of that.
Well, in the comic books, it was like like Will's always said, Iron Man became a mustache twirling villain.
Oh yeah, that comic was terrible.
And so in that sense, like, it makes much more sense the way they're doing it this time, and making it, so that you can understand both sides. And I also like the parallel they're doing between Captain's relationship with Bucky and Captain's relationship with Tony.
This is like Tony Stark in the comic book Civil War. Tony Stark was basically recruiting supervillains. He made a clone of Thor to kill Captain America.
Is it? It's Mark Millar, right? That did Civil War.
Millar, who wrote Civil War. Yeah.
I love Mark Millar's like individual projects, like Kingsman or Kick-Ass, stuff like that. Not Kick-Ass. He wasn't Kick-Ass, was he?
Oh yeah, Mark Millar wrote Kick-Ass.
Yeah, Kick-Ass and Wanted. Like, I like all of those.
They're nihilistic, aren't they? Like,
they are. Yeah, they're very.
I don't like his approach to when he uses other characters.
Oh man, but apparently, so according to the artwork, the two sides revealed so far is Cap's side is Captain America, Sharon Carter, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye, and Scarlet Witch. That's Captain America's team, and then Iron Man's team is Iron Man, War Machine, Black Widow, Black Panther, and Vision.
Yeah, okay. Iron Man's got more of the power, it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm excited for all this. I just hope it doesn't become too many characters on screen at once. I think this is going to be a real test for the MCU, even more than Guardians of the Galaxy was.
Also, this is supposed to be the movie where Spider-Man debuts in the MCU.
Spider-Man and Black Panther are both being introduced in this, and I'm like...
Well, they're still denying Spider-Man in that, like, wink wink, like, we didn't say he was in it, wink wink,
Oh no, I just read
an arrangement with Sony so that Spider-Man could be in Civil War.
Yeah. They said he was going to show up in a Marvel movie first.
No, I just
there aren't any other Marvel movies.
Oh yeah.
I just read it. I just read an interview with Anthony Russo, who just spoke candidly about how they're approaching Spider-Man in Civil War.
So they did. So they have officially done it now. Because Feige, just a couple weeks ago, was like, "We never said."
Yeah, Feige.
Now he's starting to sound like the president of Nintendo or something.
Wink, wink.
We cannot confirm or deny. So that's good to hear that that's kind of out now, but. We actually got to see Black Panther in the trailer.
And yeah, we got to see Black Panther in the trailer. And what's interesting about Black Panther is apparently, what kicks it off is it's a lot about Bucky, but also there's like an incident that happens at the beginning of the film, apparently, where Captain America is leading the new group of Avengers that we've seen at the end of Age of Ultron. And they're trying to take down Crossbones. One of the villains from Winter Soldier, and apparently it goes horribly wrong, and everybody freaks out because of that incident, and mostly because of what happened in Age of Ultron, Sokovia, that they draft legislation that kicks this whole thing off, And apparently Black Panther plays a large role in drafting that legislation.
He's the king of his country, which is really powerful. We've only gotten the briefest of references to it in Age of Ultron, but is going to end up becoming like a huge reference point for lore from now on, I think.
Yeah.
Too
So
bad
yeah.
I can't interact with X-Men because at one point doesn't Storm marry Black Panther?
I think so, yeah. we can't have that one true pairing.
Who's the Storm equivalent of the Inhumans?
Oh please, like any of the Inhumans could ever be half as cool as Storm.
Right. Right, exactly. Never.
It'll be like a character named like Tempest or something.
I can't wait till
No.
I can't wait till Marvel finds their Inhuman equivalent of Wolverine.
Hey, Will, I think I know where the audio problem's coming from now.
Where's it come from?
I think your audio is set on your headphones now because you when you formatted your computer or reset your computer.
Oh.
So I think it's coming through your headphones because every time it's crinkling, it's like when you reach your arm up like that or something, where it would be rubbing against the microphone.
So it's not going through the webcam. Okay, I'll have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of noticed that. Sorry, everybody, for that weird breakaway. If you've been hearing audio issues, that's what we've been trying to figure out. So let's move on from Civil War talk. I think we're all excited about that, and let's talk about
Jessica. About like trailers, though. What about the trailer for Superman versus Batman?
I don't know.
I haven't watched that.
You haven't watched?
I haven't watched it. I haven't even watched Man of Steel because it sounds really exhausting.
It is. It's basically it's another movie coming out where superheroes fight each other.
But it sounds like their fight is going to be way more physical and a lot less ideological.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then
I don't know because it does kind of go to that a little bit because they finally in the new trailer that came out they showed kind of what the real threat's going to be that's going to unite them, and they also showed Wonder Woman for the first time. And
honestly,
when she debuted,
that's my big concern for Batman v Superman. I want Wonder Woman to be awesome. She
is awesome in this trailer.
When she shows up, it's like a total Marvel moment. Like they totally did like an MCU type Marvel like Avengers moment.
So basically, this trailer revealed that Doomsday is in this film now, and so basically,
who in the DC universe isn't in this film?
Right?
Yeah, they didn't show Aquaman in the trailer yet, so we haven't seen him yet. We know he's in the movie, but we haven't seen him.
Oliver Queen is going to show up next in the pivotal.
Yeah. No, because it won't be Stephen Amell Oliver Queen, and I will blow a gap.
Like Oliver Queen is played by Cuba Gooding Jr. or something, like some weird casting.
Gooding Jr. But yeah, so Doomsday shows up, and he launches like this laser blast or something, and that's when Wonder Woman shows up because she like blocks it with her shield, and then like Batman and Superman are both confused, and like Superman's like, she with you? And Batman's like, I thought she was with you.
So it was like a cute little dialogue moment between them, like a little funny. It's the kind of thing you'd see in Avengers, you know. And so it was kind of a little striking, just because everything we've seen from the movie before has been so dour. So like, you know, such like poor mood, like everything's just dreary, and you know everybody's angry, and you know, and then you get like, okay, now they're kind of joking around with each other in the middle of a fight. You know, this is very Marvel.
Stupid rumor that came out that said that Warner Bros. Didn't want any humor in DC movies.
Mm. Yeah.
announcements that have me going, oh, this does not bode well. This does not bode well. Like, I
Yeah,
guess
That was
they're
just a
trying to
rumor, though.
differentiate themselves from Marvel, but isn't the point of comic books, like a big part of them is that they're fun?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. It's like
It's the weirdest thing too that I mean we've talked about this before, but I mean the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so kind of light and funny, and you know even when it's like serious, they'll take moments to put in some kind of quick jokes and stuff. You know, it's never like too serious that you're not gonna laugh when there's the right occasion, and the DC movies have been so dark and dreary, and it's like the polar opposite on the comics. Where
Well, I blame The Dark Knight. I really do. It's because The Dark Knight got them tons of critical acclaim and like the first ever Oscar for a comic book movie performance. And DC went, oh, that needs to be our template for all our movies going forward.
yeah, that needs to be it.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be dark and gritty and have the Christopher Nolan serious approach to it. And it's like, really?
Which is like really a misread of what made the Christopher Nolan movies work in the first place.
What works for Batman isn't necessarily going to work for Superman and Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
That's what makes Arrowverse work, is they don't try to impose Oliver Green Arrow sensibilities onto the universe of Flash. Flash has a lighter tone and because it works better for the character.
Right, yeah, they don't try to make Flash as gritty as the Arrow.
Yeah. They're already doing fairly good with Batman in this iteration of him. Like they've shown in the trailer that like he talks through like an amplified module in his mask or something, but he doesn't always talk through it. So like every so often he'll kind of like mutter something to himself. And so I think you're gonna get some humor there.
I really hope that we can thank Arrow for that, because I think that's one of the many ways in which Arrow has improved things with the whole Secret Identity, is, hey, maybe he could use a voice modulator so when he's talking to people who know him in real life, they won't guess who he is.
Right. It's so funny because for like for first season of Arrow, I got the impression from at least season 1 of Arrow that it was trying to be like Christopher Nolan Batman, the TV show. And I was like, which I loved because I was like, that's great, and it works for Green Arrow as a character too. But but you know, if you notice, like even Arrow has gotten lighter and softer over the years.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll have to say more after I've watched 4th season.
Right.
Well, you have to let us know when that is.
It has been a good role for Arrow. I get people that want their stuff to be light, but I mean at the same time, like the Defender stuff for the MCU is demonstrating the value of having some stuff be darker, and I liked Arrow darker. I don't want Arrow to become lighter.
Right, yeah, the Arrow should be like a darker show. I agree. I love season
broody.
1.
It should be broody. That doesn't mean it can't be funny too. I mean, Angel was a very broody show, but it was also funny, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just I don't know. I have heard a lot of flack and discussion about that going into the 4th season, and it made me really unhappy because if I want to watch the light and fluffy, that's what Flash is for. That's what Supergirl is for. I like the dark aesthetic to Arrow. I like the moral ambiguity.
We got to get the balance right. That's the thing, you know. Yeah. I think going humorless is the wrong route, but it's like I said, you know, like you have Buffy and you have Angel, and Angel was always way darker than Buffy.
Well,
but Angel was still funny, you know.
Angel had a good mix of showrunners there. They had Joss Whedon producing it, and you know, providing Stephen S. D. Knight, who
David
Fury. So we had some guys on there.
Jane Epison or no? Yeah.
We had some guys on Angel, working on Angel, who knew how to do dark and brooding, and then we also had some people, Joss Whedon most of all, who knew how to inject humor into it, and they found the perfect mix of that. And that's why it's one of the best shows of all time. But
so we're talking about the darker feel of the Marvel Netflix shows, and so let's kind of move our conversation now to Jessica Jones. Now we've all seen the entire run of Jessica Jones now, all 13 episodes. What are your basic thoughts, Kat?
Um, I thought everything about the production was fantastic. Like the cinematography and the acting and the characterization was all really well done. And the noir aesthetic kind of grew on me. I had a lot of issues with quite a bit of the plotting. I think two of my biggest beefs for the season is I think they had maybe a little bit too much filler, and also I was pretty dissatisfied with her final confrontation with Kilgrave.
I liked her final confrontation with
Yeah, I
Kilgrave,
liked it.
but I agree with you on the filler. It's one of those things
Yeah.
where like I've expressed the best way I can express it is that it's 13 episodes, and if they had cut it down to 10, it probably would have
Yeah.
been much better.
They could have cut out Simpson's entire character. He was
Yeah.
useless.
Well, like
My
the
biggest
later
concern,
part of his character, like at the beginning, it was kind of interesting, and his relationship with, was interesting, and the way that developed. But when all of a sudden it's like, oh, and by the way, he also has a secret past as a, a drug,
He's Nuke.
yeah, a
the one
drug
I had
using.
the hardest time with was when she and Kilgrave were hanging out at her home. Right, he bought up her old home, and I was like, one of the things that bugged me about it, right, going in is I found in that Kilgrave in that episode far less terrifying in the flesh than I did in the abstract, like in all those episodes preceding it. And then they spent the whole episode going, well, maybe he was just in the right circumstances, he could be a hero. And I was like, okay, first of all, you're completely. I don't, for the life of me, have any idea how you're wanting me to feel about him right now as a villain. Second of all, to me, that did not gel at all with what they did with him from there on. Like,
Yeah,
for the rest of the season.
I
That
actually
was
like
so
that.
weird.
I actually like that because
I did too.
it
Yeah.
kind of exposed, it kind of exposed him for like, he is actually just this really pathetic man. He just happens to have this ability that allows him to,
Well, I liked it because it asked the question, like it's like you go in before and it's kind of cryptic and you don't really know what makes him tick or why he is the way he is, and then they explore the idea of like, well, is it his fault he is the way he is? And I feel that when they conclude it, it's yes, it is his fault. Like
Yeah.
there is no excusing what
Sure.
he's
Well,
done.
but,
And
like,
he did know more than he put on. Like he does not accept responsibility for what he's done.
no, he's pathetic.
And
Yeah, I
I
completely
think that
agree.
if they hadn't explored that, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
Right.
But I think what didn't work for me is that in that episode he works very hard to infer that his parents didn't parent him and didn't teach him the difference between right and wrong. And so Jessica takes him out, and it seems to demonstrate that if there's someone there to tell him right and wrong, that he can continue to do that. And later on, it becomes clear that actually his parents probably were trying to be parents and then ran away from him. And so, in which case, Jessica's whole dilemma in that episode was whether or not she should stick by him and be that one person who continues to tell him right and wrong. But
Right.
if he knows that, then it completely undermines the character's entire dilemma. And for me, it makes that entire episode filler. Like,
Well,
I couldn't-
but she doesn't know it. But she doesn't know it. He knows it.
He knows it, but she does. Well, Jessica kind of has bad ideas like that throughout the entire
but,
season.
but for the audience,
Yeah.
it completely undercuts the dilemma of the character.
Mhm.
I don't
Right.
know. I that one was my least favorite. The other one I
thought-
just thought was so bizarre was the woman who came and hired Jessica so she could kill her in retaliation for the
Yeah,
Avengers.
that was a weird
Which
like
was the
one-off
most
episode thing.
that was
needlessly convoluted revenge scheme.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, the Avengers caused all this damage, so I'm just gonna get revenge on anybody who has powers. Apparently.
I like the conclusion to that. I like what Jessica said to her, and Jessica kind of rampaging through the room and kind of destroying
Tearing
everything,
apart the
and then
apartment.
like pointing out that wasn't me, and then like kind of threatening her, and then taking off. So I like that aspect of it.
Did that
But I
woman-
agree with you. It was like this weird filler story.
Did that woman read the same book on revenge as like the guy from Heroes?
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
feel
yeah,
like
that
the
was,
show had a harder time in the first half of the season doing its foundational stuff. Like the foundational stuff was necessary, but I didn't find the stories as compelling. I thought it
Right.
got way more interesting in the back half of the season when it started to come together
yeah.
and
Yeah.
was more serialized.
I liked Luke Cage too in this. I felt the guy they got doing Luke Cage. I felt perfect. Just did
And
perfect.
it's largely his chemistry with Jessica Jones was so apparent.
Right. Yeah.
And they had chemistry out the ass, you know? I mean, it was everywhere. It was
And
the
now
opposite of Oliver Felicity.
and now it makes now it makes me look for
Jessica
yeah
Jones is the anti-Felicity, and we love her for
Yeah.
it.
yeah right the opposite of Oliver Felicity. It makes me excited to see his show now.
Mhm.
Mm.
But
And I think it's also going to be interesting because some people they didn't like that Jessica Jones just as a whole had this kind of like drearier mood, whereas like Daredevil kind of had like a little bit of hopefulness. I think that a lot of that has to do with the outlooks of the characters representing the shows. So it's going to be interesting to see Luke Cage's outlook if Jessica Jones shows up in his series, which she should.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
hoping she should. It should continue what's going on with them there. But if that happens, it might paint her in a slightly different light than what we saw in her own.
Because
well,
Because
it'll
we'll
be
kind
from
of be
his
seeing her
perspective.
from his perspective.
Yeah, I'm sad to hear that people feel that way about Jessica Jones because it's a different series from Daredevil. I
Yeah.
think you're right that it's about the outlook of the protagonist, but also, I mean, this is a series that's about coping with being victimized
I
in
think that
any form, right? Abuse, sexual abuse,
yeah,
any kind of sexual assault, anything in that arena. That's a core facet of what the show is about. Like you can't expect that to be hopeful. Of course, it's going to be dark.
I've heard a lot of misunderstandings also about like things that I was kind of like, what? Like, how did you read into it that way about Jessica's kind of like her harebrained schemes to do certain things, and certain things weren't necessarily played off well. But like people say, like, why was Jessica so denying to kill Kilgrave, and then in the end she just does it anyways, and it's like, well, it's because of Hope. It's because
Yeah.
if she killed Kilgrave, then Hope goes to jail, and it's not just that she goes to jail. It's she has a younger brother who's going to think of her as the person that killed her family. There's a lot there, and there's a lot where Jessica puts
well,
herself in
yeah
Hope's place. They have this
Well, and
connection.
and
yeah
Hope
they have
even
this
says
connect.
it to Jessica that Hope represents like the ultimate innocence, and I think Jessica's still hoping that if she can save her, then she can, then there's something there that can be preserved.
So her avoiding killing Kilgrave earlier in the show before Hope dies is all about like trying to kind of save Hope, even if it means at the expense of some other people, even if it means some other people get caught up in it, because to her, Hope is like this ideal that she needs to like go through with this task because it's like it represents her own path to recovery. And
Yeah, I
the
completely agree.
moment Hope dies, that's no longer a possibility, and that makes it well now she can kill Kilgrave.
Yeah, that's why she kills Kilgrave in the end because Hope is
Yeah,
dead and there's no reason to keep Kilgrave alive anymore. And see, I thought that was satisfying at the end when she did that because just knowing the bastard's dead and the way like he doesn't even see it coming because
Yeah.
he thinks he's won in that moment.
And he tells her to smile, and she puts on this huge smile, and you see the
Yeah,
tears streaming down her cheek. And knowing that she's doing that not under his control, and how hard it is for her to sit there and watch him, like, make out with her friend, and kind of like put this position and the kind of tension of it. I really did like that final encounter. What was it about that you didn't like, Kat?
well, there were things about it that I liked, like that moment when she leans over and says to Trish instead of him, "I love you," and then she's able to
Yeah.
smile. Like I liked that reverse. That was really cool. I was primarily dissatisfied because she went on luck, not savvy, because she did not know 100% going into that situation that she was going to be able to avoid his control. And so that
Hmm.
means that it was just lucky for her that it didn't, and she was able to play act it. And so I feel like it undercut her triumph and her defeat of him as a character, because she didn't win him. She didn't beat him through her wits. She beat him because of luck.
Well, she took a chance, and because there was really no other way around it, nothing else to do. She had to get at him somehow.
There
And
was, but in that case, I kind of feel like some of the stuff they were doing at the end there with, there might be a vaccine, but we're not really going to do anything with that. And we're going to use his powers. Like, I felt like those were plot elements that the show didn't really need. If they had taken out the enhancement of the powers and done that scene just as is, then yes, I agree with you. It would have been fine. She did it.
That falls into the filler range, definitely.
The stuff I thought was interesting. They didn't say this in the show, but when they revealed that Kilgrave's power was basically a virus, I realized that Jessica can't be controlled because she built an immunity to the virus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
you
the way I
guessed it before the show revealed it?
The show never said that, really.
Did she have an immunity to the virus?
They didn't. Well, they did because they were using her blood as like a possible antidote against him.
Right.
But that didn't work.
That's
the thing. Like that, Kilgrave's father used the antidote and it didn't work. So it becomes a question of was it an immunity to the virus alone, or was it related to the fact that Jessica had to do something that went so far against her character that it permanently broke his control over her?
Maybe.
Like that it did in some other way,
Mm-hmm.
And there's some complaints about that as well. I've heard some people complain about how that wasn't necessarily clear with Kilgrave's father and if he was or was not under Kilgrave's control in the end. That he was like playing along because he kind of had to, or if he really was, and that wasn't really clear until like it had reached a certain point where it was like, okay, well, obviously he is under his control. Yeah. And so there have been some complaints about that. There's definitely some issues with the series. I mean, that's I think obvious. I think again, a lot of those issues would have been fixed out with a little quality control and shortening it down to 10 episodes or something. They could have cut a lot of that fluff out, and it would have just run a lot better. It's like you said, her confrontation with Kilgrave wasn't necessarily so bad. It was that they had the setup to that, what they did before that made it not work as well for you. So yeah, it's that. I think that was the issue with Jessica Jones, and I think it's the kind of story it tells too, where like Daredevil started out more kind of episodic, like his connection to Kingpin. They kind of paralleled each other, but it wasn't like a past connection like Jessica and Kilgrave had. So it took a while for that connection to establish, whereas we knew this connection to Kilgrave and what it meant in the first episode of Jessica Jones. And I think that in that sense, like a show like Jessica Jones needs less episodes than a show like Daredevil does. Because Daredevil has to set up and create a connection between the two characters, whereas Jessica Jones needs to tell you about an existing connection.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I know I'm being really hard on it, but just to be clear, I think overall it's a really, really well-made series. I think it has a lot of great commentary on like rape,
Mm-hmm.
And
it goes there in ways you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and one thing also that I do really appreciate, and this is an issue I feel I have with DC properties, and not so much with Marvel, is I really like that Jessica is someone who got superpowers and doesn't have suddenly this gung-ho, I want to save people attitude. And by the time we meet her in this series, she's really not someone like that. Like, in DC, there's always like, oh, what a happy coincidence that the person who got this superpower happens to be someone with purely good intentions.
Lots of pluck.
It's like she had to be convinced by her friend to do it, so she tries it out, and she doesn't even get very far into it before she meets Kilgrave, and it all goes out the window anyway.
And I like that even then, Like,
Yeah.
and she even says herself, she is an asshole. She's
Yeah.
not helping these person's
Yeah.
life. She's
Yeah.
very misanthropic, and I find that to be such a welcome change. And also, she's a train wreck in the league of like Starbuck, and it's a refreshing change from there are so many gung ho superheroes that sometimes it's fun to see some who aren't who are a bit more anti-heroic.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. She
definitely.
not a superhero. She is just a private investigator who happens to have superpowers.
Exactly.
But she's not fighting for the greater good. She's just trying to make a buck and survive, and drink away her traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's it's like you said, they're even though we're being nitpicky about the show, it is a very good show, and the kind of the rape story and the way it's handled, I think, is really good because it's not just the direct reference to actual rape and that he is controlling women to have sex with him, but there's just Kilgrave's very power in itself is rape. You know,
Mhm.
it's like mind rape is what it is. You
Yeah.
know.
True. It's forcing himself upon others,
So
and
like yeah, like the support group, for example, like when you're hearing the stories from the support group that are dealing with him, you know, the men, the women, whether it's sexually related or not, it sounds like rape stories, you know? Like I was forced in this situation, I wasn't able to do anything, like the guy having to leave his child on the curb and how it just destroyed his life and you know, like and he can't get it back and it's all that kind of stuff, it directly parallels something, and then there's the actual thing there too. And they go there and they address it. You know, I love the confrontations between Jessica and Kilgrave when it's brought up. And like the first time she says it's called rape, and he says I hate that word,
yeah.
and like you know he just can't accept it. One of my favorite scenes in the show was when they had the confrontation between the two of them, where he was saying, there were 18 seconds where you were not under my control, and
Yeah.
and this is what happened, and I'm telling my side of the story, and you can see right here that this means that part of you wanted to be with me, and so it wasn't rape.
Kilgrave's character is extra scummy because he does not take responsibility for any of it.
Mhm.
He says, like he says, he constantly says, "I never killed anybody," or "I never raped you because because of this technicality but he was controlling them and he made them do that, and so he washes his hands of all responsibility because technically he didn't do it himself by his own hand, and it's like it's just like the most scumbag character ever for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like in the last I think 3 or 4 episodes, they fleshed him out into a genuinely menacing villain. And once he started on, because I think what disturbed me most was how rational his logic was, how he's able to like paint the picture to make it look like he's the victim in some way, or like that he really doesn't deserve responsibility for any of it. That was absolutely chilling. So I think in the last few episodes in particular, he turned into a really great villain.
yeah, definitely. David Tennant knocked it out of the park as
Yeah,
Kilgrave.
he definitely the highlight of the show.
Yeah.
Great
I'm not
performance.
surprised. David Tennant's an awesome actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a great performance. I mean, from beginning to end, I loved every part of his performance. I loved like the kind of the kind of moments that kind of start out kind of charming and then turn sinister, like when they were at the house and then kind of the neighbor comes by and he's like having a pleasant exchange with the neighbor, and then he starts like forcing her to reveal like truths that she thought or like why she says certain things and like the way he's like criticizing her, it's just like the way that all came together. I love that. It was a very chilling turn because it went from this pleasant conversation into something very kind of sinister and dark.
Which, is appropriate because that's how the 10th Doctor was a lot of the times. Is he could be like really cheery and fun and funny, and a split second he could just turn really scary.
Yeah. So it's really good. I really enjoyed it. It sounds like our opinions are kind of united a little bit on this. What do you guys think in comparison to Daredevil? Like, where do you put this? Like, better than, worse than? Is it just apples and oranges and uncomparable?
I still think Daredevil's the better show, but I did really enjoy this. It's up there.
I only watched the first couple episodes of Daredevil. At some point, I'll go back and watch the rest, so I can't really compare.
I honestly, I think I like Jessica Jones more. I think it has more issues than Daredevil does, definitely.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but I like it more. I think it's also it's doing more. You know, like it's getting into like a deeper psychology than
Right.
Daredevil ever attempted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and Daredevil did go into some interesting facets, like with the way they kind of fleshed out Kingpin's character. For example, but not like Jessica Jones like a whole other level. I mean that was like if you took out the superhero elements, if you condensed it down to 10 episodes, pull out the filler, and kind of really focus it down, this is like an amazing drama piece that's telling a real message that's both kind of timeless in the sense of like the horror of rape, but also timely in the sense that it's dealing with the idea of avoiding responsibility and what defines rape in a very different way. So I think that in that way, Jessica Jones is a real kind of a special beast.
It's funny because in Daredevil they took the Kingpin. They took what was previously like a one-dimensional monster, and they made him like kind of a sympathetic villain. There was a
Mhm.
sympathetic side to him, whereas Kilgrave, there's nothing sympathetic about him. He is just pathetic.
But they
But
asked the question, is he
yeah,
sympathetic? Which is part of what I really like so much.
right. Yeah, they asked the question, and
And then
then
they said no.
no.
So yeah, that kind of wraps it up for Jessica Jones. If you guys want to let us know what you think, I think a lot of people are divisive on this series, and a lot of people had some issues with it that I didn't have. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what other people think about it. We're going to move on now to the Arrow Flash crossover, and that means we're going to be saying goodbye to Kat right now. So we're going to have one more of these for a while next week, and then we're going to be back about a month later, I think. So we'll talk to you one more time, Kat, next week.
Cool. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, talk
Later.
to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, and now on to the crossover to end all crossovers by ruining crossovers.
By ruining.
By focusing on neither of the characters from the series that are crossing over, but instead two characters with zero chemistry between them. Again, a situation that's the polar opposite of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. So right off the bat, you can tell I'm not too pleased with this crossover. There are parts I liked about it, but the focus that it put, like the laser focus it put on Hawk Girl and Hawkman, and where that seems to be setting up the priorities of Legends of Tomorrow, all incredibly disappointing to me. What are your thoughts, Will?
I think you're being too hard there. We all knew that Hawk Girl was going to be a thing, and we all knew that she would have to become a thing somehow. And so far, all they've shown of her in Flash was that she is a bartender at a cafe and she's going out with Cisco, and she's not doing anything that remotely leads to being Hawk Girl
Yeah.
at all. And so I'm glad that we finally got around to actually making this character Hawk Girl and not Barista, because I mean, I got the sense that like maybe if they didn't like have this TV show coming up, they could have done it in a more gradual, natural way than just all of a sudden. But it's like it's totally obvious they got this new TV show coming up they have to set up for, so they had to like force the character into being Hawk Girl.
Honestly, I think Hawkman's the bigger problem. I kind of wish they changed this. They took some liberties with the story. I mean, they've done that before with other characters. I
Right.
kind of wish they took some liberties with the story and just cut Hawkman out of the story entirely.
It's kind of funny because Cisco finally gets a girlfriend, and then turns out,
And he actually had some chemistry with her.
yeah, Cisco gets a girlfriend, and then it turns out that she already had a boyfriend from like multiple previous lives.
And none of that stuff worked. That's the point that I dislike so much. And the amount of focus they put on God, what's the villain's name? Can't even think of it.
Vandal Savage.
The amount of focus they put on Vandal Savage's connection to Hawk Girl and Hawkman, and just the relationship between Hawk Girl and Hawkman. All of that just did not work for me at all. That's the thing. It's that's what's so disappointing. And it's not just disappointing because it hurt the episodes. It's disappointing because it really hurt my anticipation of Legends of Tomorrow. Because I'm like, God, is this just going to be Vandal Savage going after Hawk Girl constantly?
No,
and then the horrible chemistry between Hawkman and Hawk Girl.
No, he's got to have a more ultimate goal and Legends of Tomorrow than going after Hawkman and Hawkgirl, because
I wish they'd established that in the crossover, that they're just like a means to an end, or like a part of this and not a necessity.
They explained that for Vandal Savage to have his eternal life or whatever, he has to constantly kill them.
That's the thing that bothers me. It's too linked. That makes it that it's going to be his focus. And even if there is a larger focus, that's always going to be there. And because of that, I don't like it. I know that there's a relation in the comic books to it. But like I said, they've changed stories before. I wish they just wiped Hot Guy out of the story entirely. And
there is an out. there is an out, though.
Okay.
Because at the end of the crossover, they vaporize Vandal Savage. And so maybe when he comes back, he'll be divorced from that need to kill Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Hopefully.
He'll be immortal on his own terms.
Hopefully, but that addresses half of my problem.
Because, we know Malcolm Merlyn took his ashes and is planning to do something with that.
Which was another issue I had, by the way. Not necessarily where that could lead, but just it seemed out of character for Malcolm to do that.
It did. It really did. I thought, okay, but it reinforces the theme of the series, which is everything is Malcolm Merlyn's fault. If you go back and realize all the events that happened, at least in Arrow, probably Flash too, is all because of Malcolm Merlyn.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, let's talk about some of the good things about the episode. I still want to harp a little bit about what I didn't like about it, just because you kind of vented out. But let's talk about some of the good things about it, because even though I'm being very critical of it, it wasn't an entirely unenjoyable 2 hours of my life. I mean, there were moments that I really enjoyed. Particularly the interactions between the characters from the different shows is great.
Yeah, getting Team Flash and Team Arrow together is always a great time. And I like that we got the entire teams together from both shows. Like, almost the entire cast from both shows came together. I thought that was really neat to see them interact. It really felt like nobody was left out, almost.
Except Roy, but he's been left out of Arrow entirely.
Somewhere.
I also liked the opening scene with or not opening scene, but one of the opening moments with Damien Dark, and how it was decidedly lighter than what you'd see in Arrow, and they really gave it's like I was talking about with Jessica Jones earlier, that like these shows kind of represent the perspectives of the characters.
Yeah, because
exactly. Like, this is like a Damien Dark through like Barry's lens.
Yeah. Yeah, because this was in an episode of Flash, and so it was like a lot lighter than like the same scene probably would have been an Arrow.
Yeah, an Arrow would have been a much more broody scene, and then
Yeah.
in Flash it was more like fun.
Yeah, Flash was more like fun. I like that when Damien Dark looked like he had the upper hand on Oliver, and then the Flash comes out of nowhere and saves him. And he's like, and I'm like, isn't that what fans keep, the thing that fans keep like asking happens like every time like something happens in Arrow? They're like, oh well, can't Flash just punch Ra's al Ghul off the mountain? And well, that basically happened, except Barry like does nothing to Damien Dark. He just saves Oliver. It's like, well, since you're there, can't you just like knock out punch Damien Dark or something?
I love Damien Dark laughing too when it happened. Him getting amusement out of the whole situation.
Him getting amusement out of it, yeah.
So yeah, I definitely like that. I liked. I was talking to Will about this earlier, that I liked the kind of they got together and had a party. Yeah, I was talking to you about this earlier, Will, but like I liked before the podcast or before the video cast, but I liked that they got together and had like a party. And it just seems kind of stupid to say that that's something to like, but it's just like a little bit of like I don't know, like a little break from tension, which of course is broken by Vandal Savage. But just the very idea, like they get together, they have all the group together, so of course they're going to play some music and drink and talk to each other and laugh and, oh, remember that time we almost died? That's like perfect. So I liked all of that. I like that aspect of it. I liked how quickly everyone's identities were getting revealed.
Yeah,
To different people, and in particular, like Cisco blowing Barry's identity.
Yeah, I know. It's like Cisco. That's like the second time he did that too. He did that like in front of the Atom.
Yeah.
It's like, man, don't tell Cisco your secret identity. All right, he can't do this. It's like, there was that. Another good. One thing that was unexpected though was like the resolution to the whole Oliver Queen has a son plot line.
That like, I like that they address that, but it feels kind of weird that they did that in the middle of the crossover.
Yeah, it feels
I mean, it feels like filler, but it's not filler because it's something that like needed to be addressed in the series as a whole.
Right.
But just like, did you really have to do it then?
I know.
Right? It's like we're getting all excited about the crossover events, and then like, all of a sudden Oliver's chasing a child around,
They probably did it in the crossover because the kid lives in Central City. And it doesn't make sense for Oliver to be in Central City unless he's doing a crossover with the Flash. So I guess they kind of wrote themselves into a corner like that where it's like, well, shoot, we have to resolve this, but Oliver has to be in the Flash's city for us to resolve this. So I guess we're doing this during the crossover.
There's a lot of instances. This is some of the problems I've been having with Flash and Arrow as a whole this season, with Arrow going back last season too, is that there are some issues that I feel they could right themselves around by kind of like taking a step away from the comics in certain areas. And, when I started this and being kind of negative about this crossover, that's one of the big things. I really think that Hot Guy had no place in this thing. Like it just felt like a waste. He just was bland. He was uninteresting. He had no chemistry with Hot Girl. He was just kind of annoying. It's like they could have just removed him entirely from the equation, created some other story as to why Hot Girl and Vandal Savage, and gotten away from the whole like timeless romance thing and did something else. And I think it would have been much more entertaining.
Yeah, but it's canon. It's like Hawkman and Hawk Girl are a pair.
They should strip it from the canon.
Forever and ever. It's like, yeah, right, strip it from the canon. Oh my god. But of course, the whole Oliver having a son plot led to some really annoying Felicity drama again. Which I think Felicity was like in the wrong here, because it was like,
She's usually in the wrong in her Felicity
yeah,
drama moments.
in her Felicity drama moments, it's like Oliver is not allowed to have a secret. And you know, and it also was like, okay, he just learned about this and he needs time to process this. And you know,
It's not all about you, Felicity.
Yeah, it's not helpful to go snooping around looking and then like getting up in his face about it. And it's like, yeah, it's like, god damn, back off. The best thing Oliver did this episode was like erase that encounter completely. But then I know it's just gonna come right back up anyway.
Because he repeated the same mistake.
Yeah, because he repeated the same mistake. It's like, oh, just freaking tell her about it, Oliver, so we don't have Felicity drama. But also, like before Barry went back in time, they made it sound like this was the last straw, like this was relationship ending Felicity drama or something.
Which is just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, which is just kind of ridiculous. The idea that they couldn't work through that.
After everything they've been through, and after like Felicity like lying to him about, you know, helping out Team Arrow, even though they moved away because she wanted to get away from that. After all of that, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, it just makes no sense unless she is like hysterically overreacting even more so than usual.
One thing I can say I am happy about with this crossover is that this is likely going to be the end of the Legends of Tomorrow setup. I think we're actually going to get the introduction of the time traveler, the last elements and stuff in the first episode of Legends of Tomorrow, and that means hopefully we can actually get on to the real Flash and Arrow stories now.
Yeah, right. But like concluding the stories with Zoom and Damien Dark.
And, and getting into the meat of those stories, because those stories are just constantly being like fluffed out with Legends of Tomorrow stuff.
Turns out Zoom is Hawkman.
Yeah, God. Just think then they can kill him and get rid of him. God.
Yeah, he's like forgot to do it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's. So it sounds like at the end of the day, Will was a bigger fan of the crossover than I was. Sounds pretty obvious to me.
I was. Well, I also liked. I liked when Barry went back in time. I thought it was a cool sequence.
Yeah, I like that too.
When they lost their fight with Vandal Savage, and Vandal Savage basically kills everybody, it shows like everybody getting vaporized in this cool sequence. And then Barry goes back in time, and then Barry, I want to smack Barry after that, because Barry's like, oh, I don't know if I should tell you, it'll mess up the timeline. I'm like, the timeline that you saw,
everyone dies.
Oh, let's not mess up the timeline where everybody dies. That could be bad. Barry, I want it, you know. It's like Oliver. It's like, what could be worse? What could be worse than everybody dying?
I'm waiting for the Flash to do a Groundhog's Day episode where he resets time like a bunch of times in one episode, and you're like repeating the events of the day like differently, you know, the typical Groundhog's Day setup. I'm waiting for Flash to do that, but the problem is they keep establishing like he time travels, it's by accident, and then it's like he's reluctant to change anything. So I can't imagine them actually doing an episode like that, though I'd love it if they did.
I'd love it if they did too. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
But yeah, so yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not too big of a fan of the crossover. Will liked it more, but we seem to be in agreement about what worked and what didn't across the two. I just was a little bit harsher about what didn't. So yeah, that brings us to an end. Thank you everybody for watching this video. We will talk to you guys next week when we discuss the mid-season finales of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Flash, and Arrow. And we can kind of speculate a little bit about what's coming, and then we're going to be not doing these for about a month because there's not going to be anything to talk about. But yeah, we might do some other kind of videos in that time. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. We're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna be, doing these videos, and if we're gonna be covering Game of Thrones again, because they're probably gonna overlap a little bit. And yeah, we have other things we cover with video. We're gonna have to Will and I are gonna have to sort out time schedules on. But yeah, check out our site, tventhusiast.com. Check out our YouTube channel where you are watching this right now. Check out our Facebook page. Like us on Facebook. We like to be liked. You can follow me on Twitter at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will on Twitter at Voxel Hero. Kat had to go early. She's not really into the social medias. We're not that much either, but we just announce them. It doesn't mean we use them that much.
Exactly. So like us on social media. We are not going to use it, but go ahead.
We don't use it, but we like being stalked.
Yeah.
So talk to you guys later. Thank you, everybody. Night.
Night.